Hello listener, if you're hearing this, your heart's still beating. If you're new here, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. This story is different. This isn't about fighting to survive. It's about climbing high enough that you don't have to fight. Then learning that watching everyone else fight and die might be worse than fighting yourself. My name is Nathan Pierce. Before the world ended, I was an agricultural engineer. That probably doesn't mean much to most people, but in the Midwest, in farming country, it meant I was the guy who kept civilization's food supply from rotting, burning, or exploding. I managed grain storage facilities across 3 counties in Iowa. Massive concrete silos, some of them 20 stories tall, holding millions of bushels of corn, wheat, soybeans. Walk into any small farming town and the tallest thing you'll see isn't a church steeple or a water tower. It's a grain elevator. Those silos dominate the landscape like concrete cathedrals to agriculture. I was 44 years old and I'd spent my entire adult life around these structures. I knew their engineering inside and out. Load calculations, ventilation systems, moisture control, temperature management. I knew which silos were built to last and which ones were accidents waiting to happen. I knew how to climb them, how to enter them, how to survive in them if something went wrong. That knowledge, that specific expertise in structures most people never think about, ended up being the only reason I'm alive to tell this story. I grew up on a farm about 60 miles south of where I eventually ended up. My father raised corn and soybeans on 800 acres that had been in our family for 4 generations. I learned to drive a tractor before I could legally drive a car. Learned to read weather patterns, soil conditions, crop diseases. Learned that farming wasn't romantic, it was brutal. 14-hour days during planting and harvest, equipment breakdowns, hailstorms destroying months of work in minutes, debt that crushed families and took farms that had survived the Depression. I got out as soon as I could, went to Iowa State, studied agricultural engineering, found a job that let me work with farming without actually farming. My father never forgave me for that, called me soft, said I'd abandoned the land. We hadn't spoken in 8 years when the outbreak started. He's probably dead now. The farm's probably overrun. Sometimes I think about that, wonder if I should feel worse about it. Mostly I just feel numb. When the news started showing what was happening in the cities, I was doing a routine inspection at the Jensen facility outside Williamsburg. Small town, maybe 900 people, surrounded by cornfields that stretched to the horizon in every direction. The facility had 6 silos, each one 180 feet tall, and I was up on top of silo number 3 checking the ventilation fans when my phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Shelter in place. Avoid contact with infected individuals. Wait for further instructions. I looked out from that platform, 180 feet up, and I could see for miles. Cornfields everywhere, already harvested. Just brown stubble covering the black earth. A few farmhouses scattered across the landscape, smoke rising from their chimneys. The town itself was a small cluster of buildings, grain elevator, church, school, couple of bars, gas station, Highway 6 cutting through like a gray ribbon. Everything looked normal, peaceful, static. I climbed back down and got in my truck, listening to the radio. The reports were confused, contradictory. Violent attacks in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. Hospitals overwhelmed, police unable to maintain order, but also reassurances. The situation was contained. Help was coming. Stay calm. I wasn't calm. I'd been doing disaster planning for grain facilities for 20 years. Floods, fires, explosions, you name it. I knew how quickly normal could turn to catastrophe. And I knew that in a real emergency, help wasn't coming. Not out here. Not to farming towns in the middle of Iowa. We were on our own. I drove back to my apartment in Iowa City, 2 rooms above a hardware store, barely furnished. Everything I owned fit in my truck. I'd never put down roots, never saw the point. Now I was glad for that. I loaded up everything useful, food, water, tools, camping gear, my hunting rifle and 3 boxes of ammunition, topped off the gas tank and filled to jerry cans. Then I sat in my truck and tried to figure out where to go. North to Minnesota, south to Missouri, east to Illinois, west to Nebraska. Every direction was just more farmland, more small towns that would fall just as fast as the cities, just quieter. The news was showing footage now, shaky cell phone videos, people attacking each other, blood, chaos, and the way the victims moved after they went down, wrong, jerky, mindless. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't running away from the outbreak. I was running up, vertical evacuation. Get high enough that nothing could reach me and wait it out. The Jensen facility was perfect. 6 silos, the tallest structures for 30 miles. Isolated, the nearest house was 2 miles away. The town was 3 miles. The facility was surrounded by empty harvested fields, clear lines of sight in every direction, and I had the access codes, the keys, the knowledge of every inch of the place. I drove back to Williamsburg as the sun was setting. The highway was empty, no traffic either direction. A few cars parked at odd angles near the town, doors open, but no people visible. The streetlights came on automatically, illuminating empty sidewalks. It looked like a movie set, a town waiting for actors that would never arrive. The Jensen facility sat on the north edge of town, right off the highway. 6 white concrete silos arranged in 2 rows of 3, connected by an enclosed conveyor system. The office building and maintenance shed sat between the silos and the road. Everything was locked up for the night, but I had keys to everything. I parked my truck behind the maintenance shed, out of sight from the road, grabbed my supplies and started hauling them up. The silos had external ladders, steel cages running up the outside from ground level to the top platform. I chose Silo 3, the one I'd been inspecting that morning, the one I knew best. The climb was brutal. I'd climbed these ladders 1,000 times, but never carrying a full pack. Never with my rifle slung across my back. Never with the knowledge that this might be the last climb I'd ever make down. 180 feet, 600 rungs. My legs were screaming by the time I reached the top platform. The platform was a circular deck about 12 feet in diameter, surrounded by a chest-high safety railing. In the center was the access hatch leading down into the silo's interior. Around the edges were ventilation fans, control panels, and the equipment I normally came up here to maintain. The view was incredible. I could see the whole town laid out below me like a model railroad display. Beyond that, farmlands stretching to the horizon in every direction. The sky was turning deep purple, stars starting to come out. I stood there catching my breath, and that's when I heard it. Screaming, faint, coming from the direction of town. Then gunshots, pop, 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 a pause. More screaming, more shots, then silence. I opened the access hatch and looked down into the silo. The interior was a vertical tunnel, 40 feet in diameter, dropping 180 feet straight down. A spiral staircase hugged the outer wall, with small platforms every 30 feet for safety. The bottom was filled with grain, wheat from the last harvest, probably 10,000 bushels still waiting to be shipped. The grain level was about 60 feet deep, which meant I had 120 feet of empty silo space above it. The setup was better than I'd hoped. The staircase meant I didn't have to use the exterior ladder every time I needed to move between levels. The grain provided food, enough wheat to last me months if I rationed it carefully. The concrete walls were 2 feet thick, essentially and the hike gave me an observation post better than any watchtower. I started hauling my supplies through the hatch, piling them on the top platform. It took 4 more trips up the external ladder to get everything. By the time I finished, it was full dark. The town below was mostly quiet now. A few lights still on, but less than normal. I could see what looked like a fire burning near the church, orange flames licking up into the night sky. I sealed the access hatch from inside, climbed down the interior spiral stairs to the first platform, and that's when I realized I'd forgotten something critical. Water. I had 2 gallons in my supplies. That might last me 3 days if I rationed carefully. After that, I'd need a source. The silo had a rain collection system on the roof, gutters that fed into pipes running down to a storage tank at ground level. But the tank was outside, and I had no way to pump water up 180 feet without power. The facility's generator would work, but it was loud and it burned fuel. Running it regularly would attract attention. I sat on that platform in the darkness and forced myself to think methodically, the way I'd been trained. Water. I needed water. Options: 1. Go back down and fill containers from the storage tank. Risky if things got worse outside. 2. Wait for rain and rig a collection system on the top platform. But Iowa in October, rain wasn't guaranteed. 3. Extract moisture from the grain. Wheat was typically stored at 13 to 14% moisture content. If I could extract that moisture somehow, I could get drinkable water. Option 3 was complicated, but it was possible. I'd have to rig a distillation system, use grain as the water source, and collect the condensation. It would take time and materials, but I had both. For now, I'd ration my 2 gallons and work on a long-term solution. I spread out my sleeping bag on the platform, used my pack as a pillow, and tried to sleep. The silo had its own sounds. The wind whistling through the ventilation fans, the occasional creak and groan of the structure adjusting to temperature changes. And from outside, faint and far away. More screamy, I lay there in the dark, 180 feet above the ground, and wondered if I'd just made the smartest decision of my life, or the stupidest. Day 1 officially started when I woke to sunlight streaming through the ventilation slats. I climbed back up to the top platform and looked out. The town was different in daylight. I could see people now, but they weren't moving right. Shambling, stumbling, clustering near certain buildings. I counted maybe 30 of them in the downtown area. The fire from last night had burned itself out, but the church was clearly damaged on movement on the highway. A car, speeding from the east, not slowing as it approached town. It swerved around an abandoned vehicle, overcorrected, went off the road, and crashed into a ditch. I watched through my binoculars as 2 people climbed out. They looked okay, shaken but alive. They started running toward town. Bad move. I wanted to shout at them, warn them, but they were too far away to hear. I watched them run straight into downtown, watched the shambling figures turn toward them, watched the 2 people realize their mistake and try to run back. One made it about 50 yards before they pulled her down. The other ran into a building, a bar I think, and didn't come back out. I'd just watched 2 people die and there was nothing I could have done to stop it. That thought sat in my stomach like cold lead. I spent the rest of day 1 doing inventory and planning. Food. I had canned goods for maybe 2 weeks. Plus thousands of pounds of raw wheat in the silo, tools, basic maintenance equipment, plus what I'd brought from my apartment, weapons, hunting rifle with 40 rounds of ammunition, water 2 gallons. And that was my biggest problem. I rigged a rain collection system using a tarp stretched across one section of the top platform, funneling into a clean bucket. If it rained, I'd be fine. If it didn't, I'd have to get creative or go back down. That afternoon I heard an engine, a big one. I looked out and saw a semi-truck rolling down Highway 6, heading west. The truck was moving fast, weaving around obstacles. As it passed near the facility, I could see the trailer was loaded with people, maybe 20 of them clinging to whatever handholds they could find. Some had guns. They looked organized, purposeful. The truck didn't stop. It blew through town without slowing and disappeared west toward. I watched it until it was out of sight, wondering where they were going, if they'd find safety, if I should have tried to signal them. I didn't. I stayed hidden. Day 2, I woke to the sound of rain. Beautiful, perfect, life-saving rain. My collection tarp was working perfectly, water streaming into the bucket. I'd have fresh water. That one problem solved meant I could actually survive up here long term. I spent the morning exploring the silo's interior more thoroughly. The spiral staircase had 6 platforms at 30-foot intervals. Each platform was about 8 feet square, enough space to stand, store supplies, even sleep if I wanted different levels for different purposes. The grain pile at the bottom was stable, wheat kernels packed firm. I could access it by descending to the bottom platform and reaching down with a bucket on a rope. I hauled up 10 pounds of wheat. Raw wheat isn't easy to eat. The kernels are hard, tough on your teeth, but I could soak them overnight to soften them, boil them into porridge, or if I got desperate, sprout them for nutrition. 10 pounds would last me 3 or 4 days. The silo held literally tons of wheat. I could survive on this for years if I managed it right. The realization hit me hard. I could actually survive up here for years. This wasn't a temporary shelter. This was a permanent refuge. A concrete tower fortress in the middle of farmland, with food, water, height advantage, and visibility for miles. I'd stumbled into possibly the best survival location in the entire region. But survival wasn't the same as living. That distinction would become clearer as the days passed. Day 3. The first walkers reached the facility. I watched them approach from the south, a group of maybe 7, moving slowly through the harvested cornfield. They weren't focused on the silo, they were just drifting, following some instinct I couldn't understand. They reached the facility perimeter, wandered around the base of the silos for a while, then continued north. No interest in climbing, no indication they even knew I was up here. The external ladder had a cage around it for safety, but I didn't like that it went all the way to ground level. It was an access point. I spent that afternoon climbing down with tools and disconnecting the bottom 3 sections of ladder. Heavy work and dangerous being at ground level, but necessary. When I finished, the lowest accessible ladder rung was 18 feet up. Nothing was climbing that without serious equipment. I also surveyed the area around the facility. The office building was locked, windows intact. The maintenance shed was the same. My truck was still where I'd left it, untouched. Everything looked undisturbed except for the tracks in the dirt where the walkers had passed through. Back at the top, I used my binoculars to scan the entire area. Town to the south, more walkers visible, maybe 50 now, clustered in the downtown area. Highway to the east and west, abandoned vehicles, a few walkers on the road. Farmland to the north, empty as far as I could see. Farmhouses scattered across the landscape, most showed no signs of life. One had smoke rising from the chimney. Someone was still alive there that I made a decision. I'd broadcast on CB radio. Farmers used CB constantly to coordinate across long distances. If anyone out here was still alive and listening, maybe we could share information, help each other survive. I dug out my portable CB from the supplies and powered it on. Channel 19, the standard highway channel. I keyed the mic. This is Nathan Pierce, broadcasting from the Jensen facility north of Williamsburg. If anyone's receiving this, I'm alive and secure, looking to establish contact with other survivors. Please respond if you can hear me. I released the key and listened to static. Waited a full minute, nothing. I tried again on channel 9, the emergency channel. Same message, same static. One more time on channel 14, the channel local farmers used. This time, a response. Weak, broken up, but definitely a human voice. ... copy ... This is Arca Farm. You say Jensen facility. My heart jumped. Someone else was alive out here. Yes, Jensen facility. The grain elevator north of Williamsburg. Who is this? What's your location? ... Tom Parker. My farm, 5 miles northeast of you ... Hold up in the house. They're everywhere out here. Tom Parker. I knew that name. I'd been to his farm before, years ago. Good guy. Dairy farmer, if I remembered right. Tom, this is Nathan. How many are you? What's your situation? Just me. Wife and kids left for Des Moines 3 days ago. Haven't heard from them since. I got food and water, but I can't get to the barn. They're in the yard. His voice was strained, exhausted, terrified. How many walkers in your yard? I don't know. 10, maybe 12. They don't leave. Just standing there. I looked northeast with my binoculars, scanning the farmhouses. Found one about the right distance with a barn and a cluster of dark shapes in the yard that might be walkers. I can see your location, Tom. You're in the white farmhouse with the red barn. That's me. Can you help? The question hung in the air. Could I help? Should I? Getting to his farm would mean leaving the silo, crossing 5 miles of open country, dealing with walkers. And for what? To save one man who might already be doomed. Tom, listen to me carefully. You need to stay inside. Bar your doors and windows. Ration your food. This will pass eventually, and help will come. Help. There's no help coming. I've been listening to the radio. It's everywhere. The whole country's falling apart. Then you hunker down and wait. You can survive this if you stay put. I can't. I'm running out of food. ... Have maybe 3 days left. And the power's out. The milk went bad. You're a farmer, Tom. You know how to live off the land. You'll figure it out. There was a long silence. Then his voice came back, quieter. You're not coming, are you? You're just going to sit in your tower and watch me starve. I'm sorry, Tom. I can't risk it. I've got my own survival to think about. Coward, he said. Not angry, just stating fact. I hope your tower's worth more than a man's life. The radio went silent. I called his name a few more times, but got no response. I sat there on the platform, watching that farmhouse through my binoculars, and told myself I'd made the right choice. Tried to believe it. Day 5. I watched Tom Parker's last stand. Early morning, I saw movement at the farmhouse. The front door opened and Tom came out carrying what looked like a shotgun. He was moving with purpose, not panicked. He walked straight toward the barn. The walkers in the yard turned toward him. There were about 15 of them, more than he told me. Tom fired once. A walker dropped. He pumped the shotgun, fired again. Another walker down. He kept moving toward the barn, firing every few seconds. He made it to the barn door, got it open, went inside. The remaining walkers followed him in. I couldn't see what happened inside, but I heard more gunshots. 6, 7, 8 shots. Then silence. I waited, watched. Tom didn't come back out. 20 minutes later, a figure emerged from the barn, walking with that distinctive shambling gait. Tom's height, Tom's clothes, but not Tom anymore. He'd failed, gotten infected, turned, joined the dead. I should have felt something. Horror, pity, guilt. I just felt numb. One less voice on the radio. One less survivor in the area. Day 7. I made my big mistake. I got complacent. The facility had been quiet. No walkers nearby. The town was 3 miles away, and the dead seemed to prefer staying in clusters near buildings, rather than wandering the empty fields. I'd seen no living people since the semi-truck on day 1. I started to relax. I shouldn't have relaxed. I was on the second platform down, about 120 feet up, preparing wheat for my dinner, when I heard scraping metal. Coming from above, someone was on the external ladder. My rifle was on the top platform. I'd gotten sloppy, left it up there when I came down. Now I had nothing but a knife on my belt. I could hear footsteps on the ladder, climbing steadily. Multiple people, their boots ringing on the rungs. I looked down. No way out below, just more platforms and eventually the grain pile. I was trapped in a vertical tunnel with hostiles coming from above. I heard voices now, harsh whispers, echoing down the silo shaft. Double quotes, doubly, fresh footprints up there, double quotes, probably got supplies, be careful, might be armed, at least 2 people, possibly more, and they were right, I was armed, just not with the gun I needed. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to become invisible in the dim light. The spiral stairs gave me one advantage, they'd have to come down single file, couldn't rush me with numbers. The first figure appeared on the platform above me, male, maybe 30, wearing dirty jeans and a hunting jacket. He had a pistol in one hand, flashlight in the other. He swept the light around, looking for me. "I know you're down there," he called out. "Saw your setup on the top platform. Nice little nest you got. We're not here to hurt you, just want to talk." I stayed silent. "Come on, man, we're all in the same boat here, trying to survive. Maybe we can help each other out." Help, I called back, keeping my voice neutral. "Share resources, information, safety in numbers. There's 5 of us, good people, just looking for a safe place to hole up. This silo would be perfect. 5 people, that changed the calculation. Even if I had my rifle, I couldn't take 5 armed people in these tight quarters. The silo's barely big enough for me," I said. "Can't fit 5 more." "Oh, we wouldn't all stay here," the man said. His tone changed slightly, less friendly. "Just 1 or 2. The rest would use the office building down below. We'd share the grain, split watches, work together. Not interested." "You're not hearing me, friend. This isn't really a negotiation. We need this place, and you're going to share it, or..." He let the threat hang in the air. I watched his shadow on the wall, cast by his flashlight. He was at the platform edge, looking down the stairs toward where I was hiding. Behind him, more shadows, at least to others visible. My hand went to my knife. If he came down those stairs, I'd have 1 chance. Let him get close, go for the gun hand first, then whatever happened happened. 5 against 1, I'd probably die, but I'd make it cost them. "Last chance," the man said. "Come up here. We talk like civilized people, or we come down there and drag you up." "Come try," I said. The man sighed. "Wrong answer." He started down the stairs. I tensed, ready. He came around the curve, gun leading, flashlight right behind it. The light swept past my hiding spot, then jerked back. "Found me there, you." I didn't let him finish. Lunged forward, grabbed his gun hand with both of mine, twisted hard. The pistol fired, deafening in the enclosed space. The round went wild, sparked off concrete. I kept twisting, heard something pop in his wrist. He screamed. The gun fell, bounced off the platform, dropped down into the darkness below. Above us, shouting, people rushing down. I shoved the man hard, sent him stumbling back into whoever was coming behind him. Bodies tangled on the narrow stairs. I ran down, only direction I could go. Platform to platform, spiraling down, my boots ringing on metal. Behind me, chaos. Someone was screaming about his wrist. Someone else was shouting to follow me. Heavy boots pounding on the stairs. I reached the bottom platform 180 feet down. Nowhere left to run, just the grain pile below, 60 feet deep. Jump and I'd sink into it like quicksand, suffocate in wheat kernels. The footsteps were getting closer, multiple people, coming fast. I looked around desperately for any option, any weapon, anything. Then I saw it. The discharge chute. A big opening in the silo floor with a slide gate that, when open, let grain pour out into the conveyor system below. The gate was closed, controlled by a wheel valve on the platform. I grabbed the wheel and cranked it. The gate squealed, resisted, then started to open. Grain began pouring through the opening with a sound like rushing water. The level in the silo started dropping. Above me, someone appeared at the top of the stairs, saw what I was doing. "He's opening the discharge. Stop him." But it was too late. The grain was flowing fast now, thousands of pounds dropping through the chute, and the whole pile was shifting. Grain doesn't just drop straight down, it flows, avalanches, pulls everything around it toward the opening. The pile below me was collapsing in on itself. The platform I was standing on shook. The silo was losing its load-bearing grain. I heard groaning metal, felt everything tilt slightly. The people on the stairs felt it too. The shaking, the instability. Someone shouted, "This thing's gonna collapse. Get out." They fled. I heard them scrambling back up the stairs, boots slipping on metal, panicked voices fading. Within 30 seconds, they were gone. I kept the discharge open until I heard them climb all the way out, heard their vehicles start up and drive away. Then I closed the valve. The grain flow stopped. Silence returned. I'd dumped probably 5,000 bushels of wheat, wasted it to save my life. The grain level was much lower now, only 20 feet deep instead of 60, but the structural integrity was still good. The silo was designed to handle variable loads. I climbed back up slowly, every muscle shaking from adrenaline crash. At each platform I stopped and listened, making sure they were really gone. By the time I reached the top, I was exhausted. My rifle was still there, untouched. The bastards had left it, probably too focused on running when the silo started shaking. I grabbed it and checked their tracks. 5 people, like he'd said. They'd climbed the external ladder, found my supplies, and decided to take what they wanted. They'd left in a hurry. Tire tracks in the dirt showed 2 vehicles, looked like a pickup and an SUV, headed west toward Grinnell. I sat down hard on the top platform, rifle across my lap, and waited for the shaking to stop. That had been too close. Way too close. I'd gotten sloppy, left myself vulnerable, and I'd dumped half my food supply to escape. The remaining wheat would last me months instead of years, but it was still manageable. Lesson learned: never leave the rifle, never relax, never trust anyone. Day 10. I watched Williamsburg die. It happened slowly over 3 days, but day 10 was when I saw the end clearly. The Walker population in town had grown, hundreds of them now, filling the streets, clustered around buildings. A few living people were still moving between structures, trying to scavenge, trying to survive. On day 10, a group made a major supply run to the gas station. 6 people, looked organized, had weapons. They loaded into a van and drove straight into the downtown area. Parked at the gas station, started loading supplies. The walkers noticed, started converging from all directions. The group saw them coming, worked faster, got most of the supplies loaded, but there were too many walkers, moving too fast. The group had to abandon the gas station, got back in the van, tried to drive out. A walker threw itself in front of the van. The driver swerved, hit another walker, lost control. The van crashed into a parked car. All 6 people got out, started running. The walkers swarmed them. I watched through my binoculars as, one by one, the 6 people went down. The screaming carried even up to my position, 3 miles away. After that, I saw no more living people in Williamsburg. The town belonged to the dead. Day 15. I made first contact with Janet. She came on the CB radio late afternoon, voice weak and scratchy with distance. Anyone out there? This is Janet Reeves, broadcasting from a farmhouse on County Road W34. If anyone can hear this, please respond. I grabbed my mic. This is Nathan at the Jensen facility. I read you, Janet. What's your situation? A pause, then her voice came back stronger, excited. Oh, thank God. Thank God. I thought I was the only one left. My husband, he didn't make it. It's just me now. Where did you say you are? Grain silo, about 8 miles west of your position. How long have you been alone? 6 days. The phone lines went dead. The TV stopped working. I haven't seen another living person since Tom Parker. My stomach tightened. You knew Tom? I asked. He was our neighbor. Good man. We tried to help him, but there were too many of them. Were you in contact with him? Briefly. He told me about his situation. She paused. Did he mention us? Ask you to help? No, I lied. He just said he was alone. I couldn't tell her the truth. That Tom had asked for help and I'd refused. That I'd watched him die through my binoculars. Some truths didn't need to be shared. I'm running low on supplies, Janet said. Canned food's almost gone. There's a pantry full of preserves, but I don't know how long I can make it last. Winter's coming and I don't have enough firewood cut. You have weapons, ways to defend yourself. Shotgun and about 20 shells. Some kitchen knives. The house is solid. I've barricaded the doors and windows, but I hear them out there at night, scratching at the walls. Stay inside. Ration carefully. Monitor this channel. I'll check in daily, will you? She hesitated. Will you come here, help me? I'm scared to be alone. There it was. The request I'd been dreading. I looked out across the farmland toward where her signal was coming from. 8 miles. Manageable distance on foot in normal times. But these weren't normal times. Janet, Listen to me. You're safer in your house than I'd be trying to reach you. There are hundreds of walkers between here and there. I'd never make it. You're in a silo, she said. Voice flat now. Understanding, you can see everything from up there. See me trapped here. And you're not coming, I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry, she said bitterly. Tom was sorry. My husband was sorry when he got bit. Everyone's so sorry. But nobody helps. If I could, she cut the transmission. I tried calling back but got no response. Day 20. Janet stopped broadcasting. I'd been monitoring the radio daily, calling her every morning and evening. No response. I scanned her farmhouse with binoculars. Saw figures moving in the yard. The door was open. Smoke had stopped rising from the chimney 3 days ago. She was gone. Dead or turned. Didn't matter which. Another voice silenced. Another survivor down. I marked it in my log. Day 20. Lost contact with Janet Reeves. Presumed dead. Day 25. I saw the convoy. Big operation. 20 vehicles in a tight formation moving east on Highway 6. Military trucks. Civilian vehicles. Motorcycles. Running scout positions. They were organized. Professional. Moving fast. I grabbed my signal mirror and started flashing SOS toward them. Again and again. Please see me. Please stop. Please acknowledge that someone else is still alive out here. One of the scout motorcycles broke formation. Came toward the facility. My heart soared. They'd seen me. They were coming. The motorcycle stopped at the facility perimeter, about 200 yards away. The rider, dressed in military gear, looked up at the silo. I waved both arms. The rider raised binoculars, studied the silo for a long moment, then turned around and drove back to the convoy. They didn't stop, didn't investigate, didn't care about one person in a silo. They had their mission, whatever it was, and I wasn't part of it. I watched them disappear east toward Iowa City, and I felt something break inside me. Help had come within 200 yards. Professional, organized, capable help, and they'd looked right at me and decided I wasn't worth the time. I was truly alone. No help was coming. Not now. Not ever. Day 30. The reality of long-term survival hit me. I'd been living day to day, but now I needed to think months ahead. Winter was coming. The temperature was already dropping at night. The silo was concrete and metal. It would be freezing once winter hit hard. I had some wheat left, maybe 3,000 bushels. Enough to last me 6 months if I rationed carefully. Water was fine. Rain kept my collection system full. But heat was a problem. I had no wood, no fuel, no way to stay warm except my sleeping bag and the clothes I was wearing. I needed to scavenge. The office building below had supplies. The maintenance shed probably had tools. The houses in town might have blankets, clothing, food. But going down meant risk. Every trip was a chance to get caught, infected, killed. I spent 3 days planning, mapped out routes, timed walker movements, identified the closest, safest targets. Then on day 33, I went down, descended the external ladder in early morning, when visibility was good but the day hadn't heated up yet. Walkers were slower in cold weather. I'd noticed that. They didn't stop moving entirely, but they slowed down, hit the ground running, went straight to the office building. Door was locked but I had keys. Inside was dark, dusty, undisturbed. I grabbed everything useful, blankets from the break room, tools from the maintenance closet, a space heater that might work if I ever got power, boxes of crackers and candy bars from someone's desk drawer, and then I went to the maintenance shed. More tools, some lumber, a tarp, rope, a manual drill. I loaded everything into a wheelbarrow and pushed it back to the silo base. That's when I saw them. 3 walkers, coming across the field from the south. They'd spotted me, were heading straight toward me. I left the wheelbarrow and climbed, fast as I could, hands slipping on the cold metal rungs, pack bouncing on my back. Below me, the walkers reached the silo base. One started climbing the ladder. It got about 6 feet up before it fell. Tried again. Fell again. It didn't have the coordination to climb, but it kept trying. I reached the top platform, breathing hard, and looked down. All 3 walkers were at the base now, milling around, reaching up. They couldn't climb, but they weren't leaving either. I'd attracted attention, made noise, shown myself. Now they knew something was here. They'd stay, maybe forever. I hauled my supplies up using a rope and pulley system I'd rigged. Got the wheelbarrow contents to the top platform, distributed them to different storage platforms. The blankets alone were worth the risk. I could layer them, create insulation, survive the cold, but the walkers below didn't disperse. By evening, there were 7 of them. By the next morning, 12. They just stood there, looking up, waiting for something they couldn't articulate. I'd made my silo visible, and now it was under siege. Day 40, I heard a new voice on the CB, young male, frantic. Help, please, anyone. I'm at the high school in We're surrounded, running out of ammo. If anyone's out there, please respond. I grabbed the mic. This is Nathan. What's your situation? Oh God, thank you. We're trapped in the high school. There's 8 of us. We thought this place was safe, but they just keep coming. Hundreds of them. We're in the 2nd floor, but they're breaking through downstairs. Do you have a vehicle? In the parking lot, but we can't reach it. They're everywhere out there. Is there a roof access? Maybe, I don't know. We haven't looked. Find it. Get to the roof. It's your best chance, and then what? We can't stay on a roof forever. You can stay there longer than you can stay on the 2nd floor. Move now. I listened as he relayed the plan to others. Heard arguing, shouting, then running footsteps, gunshots, screaming. The radio went dead for 5 minutes. When the voice came back, it was different, colder, harder. We're on the roof. 3 of us made it. 5 didn't. We can see them down there. Hundreds of them. They're trying to climb the fire escape. Are you secure? For now. But what's the endgame here? We're on a roof with no food, no water, no way down. I didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, they were dead. Just taking longer to get there. Conserve energy, I said. Stay warm. If you see any rescue operations, signal them. That's it. That's your advice. I'm sorry. There's nothing else I can tell you. Where are you? The voice asked. You sound pretty calm for someone in the middle of an apocalypse. I'm in a secure location. I can't help you. I'm barely surviving myself. Secure location, right? Well, good for you. Hope it's worth listening to us die. He cut the transmission. I tried calling back. No answer. 2 days later, I heard screaming on that channel. Then silence. Day 50. I watched a horde migrate through my area. It started as distant movement to the south. Through binoculars, I could see them coming. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. A massive cluster of walkers moving north in a loose group about a mile wide. They were following the highway mostly, but spreading out across the fields, like a slow-moving tsunami of dead flesh. I'd never seen anything like it. Where had they all come from? Why were they migrating? The leading edge reached my facility around noon. Walkers streamed past on all sides. Some diverted toward the silo, drawn by the cluster already at the base. Within an hour, I had over 100 walkers around my silo. Within 2 hours, several hundred. They couldn't climb, but they filled every inch of ground-level space. Pressed against the silo walls, moaning, reaching up, creating a writhing carpet of dead flesh. The main horde took 6 hours to pass through. By evening, the bulk of them had moved north, but hundreds stayed behind, clustered around the facility. They'd found something. Me, my scent, my presence, and their instinct told them to stay. I was under permanent siege now. Going down was impossible. I was truly trapped in my tower. Day 60. The isolation started breaking me. I'd been alone before, spent weeks at a time on solo projects, but this was different. This was absolute. No phone calls, no internet, no casual conversations. Just me and the radio static and the moaning of the dead 180 feet below. I started talking to myself. Full conversations. Think we should check the grain level today. Nathan. Yeah, probably a good idea. Nathan. Better do it before it gets dark. Nathan. You're right. Nathan. 2 voices. Both mine. Both crazy. But it kept me sane. The paradox of survival. I also started spending hours on the CB, scanning through all the channels, hoping for voices. Sometimes I'd find them. Fragments of conversations. Distress calls. People looking for help that would never come. I'd listen without responding. Just confirmation that other humans still existed somewhere. One voice became a regular. A woman, broadcasting from somewhere to the west. She never gave her name or location, just read poetry. Long passages from books she had with her. Her voice was calm, measured, beautiful. She'd read for an hour, then go silent, return the next day and read more. I looked forward to her broadcasts. She became my companion in the darkness. I never contacted her, never interrupted. Just listened. One day she stopped reading mid-sentence. There was a crash, like the radio had been dropped. Screaming, then silence. She never came back. I mourned her like I'd known her. Sat on the platform and cried for the poetry reader I'd never met. Day 70, winter hit hard. The temperature dropped below freezing and stayed there. My breath came out in clouds. The metal platforms turned icy. The water in my collection bucket froze solid every night. I layered every piece of clothing I had. Spent most of my time in my sleeping bag. huddled against the concrete wall where the afternoon sun warmed the stone slightly. Ate wheat porridge cold because I had no way to cook it. Drank melted ice for water. The walkers below slowed down dramatically. The cold affected them. They still moved, still clustered around the silo base, but slower. Some froze in place when the temperature dropped low enough, becoming statues until the day warmed up. I should have been happy about that. Slower walkers meant less threat, but seeing them freeze and then thaw and continue moving reinforced the horrible truth. They didn't feel cold, didn't feel pain, didn't feel anything. They were just meat that moved, and no amount of winter could stop them permanently. Day 80, I saw lights in the distance, not dawn artificial lights. From the direction of town, I watched through binoculars as vehicles moved through Williamsburg streets. Someone was there. Living people, organized. They cleared buildings systematically. I could see muzzle flashes, hear faint gunshots. A disciplined operation. They were reclaiming the town from the dead. For 2 days they worked, clearing, fortifying, establishing a perimeter. I watched it all happen 3 miles away. Watched them succeed where others had failed. They had numbers, weapons, strategy. On day 82, I saw them set up a radio antenna, big one, on top of the tallest building downtown. They were establishing communications. I grabbed my CB and started cycling through channels, trying to find their frequency. Found it on channel 7. Perimeter is secure. Team 3, report status. Team 3, southwest quadrant clear, no contacts. Copy that. All teams, hold positions, await further orders. Professional, military-style communications. These weren't random survivors. These were trained people who knew what they were doing. I keyed my mic. This is Nathan Pierce, broadcasting from the Jensen Grain facility north of your position. Do you copy? Silence for a moment. Then, say again. Call up. Identify your location. Jensen facility. Grain silos approximately 3 miles north of Williamsburg town center. I'm a survivor. Been here since day 1. Another pause. Copy that, Nathan. How many in your group? Just me. Understood. Stand by. I waited. 5 minutes passed, then a different voice came on, older, with command presence. Nathan, this is Colonel Marsh, Iowa National Guard. We're establishing a safe zone in Williamsburg. We have supplies, medical care, security. We'd like to bring you in. My heart pounded. Rescue, actual real rescue. After 82 days alone, the possibility of being around people again. What would extraction look like? I asked. We send a team to your location. 3 vehicles, armed escort, get you out safely and transport you to the safe zone. Can you climb down from your position? Yes, but there are walkers at the base. Hundreds of them. Will handle that. When can you be ready? When could I be ready? Right now, immediately, this second. But something made me hesitate. A nagging doubt in the back of my mind. Colonel, what's the population in your safe zone? Currently we have 147 people. Growing daily as we find more survivors. 147 people. Close quarters. Shared resources, rules and structure, and constant human interaction. After 82 days alone, could I handle that? Did I even want to? Nathan, you still there? The colonel asked. I need time to think about this. I heard myself say, can I get back to you? Affirmative. We'll monitor this channel. But Nathan, understand that we're mobile. This safe zone is temporary. Within a week we're moving to a more defensible position near Des Moines. If you want our help, you need to decide soon. Understood. I'll contact you within 24 hours. I released the mic and sat back. Rescue was right there, 3 miles away. All I had to do was say yes. But 82 days in this silo had changed me. I'd gotten used to the solitude, the safety, the control over every aspect of my existence. Down there, I'd have to share, compromise, follow orders, live by their rules. Up here, I was free. Completely, totally free. Was I really ready to give that up? Day 83, I made my decision. I contacted the colonel and told him no. I was staying in the silo. I had food, water, shelter. I was surviving fine. Didn't need rescue. The colonel tried to talk me out of it. Said isolation would break me eventually. Said I couldn't survive winter alone. Said human beings needed community. I thanked him for the offer and signed off. 2 days later, the National Guard convoy left Williamsburg. I watched them pack up, load their vehicles, and drive west. 147 people heading for Des Moines and whatever future waited for them there. I stayed in my silo and told myself I'd made the right choice. Day 100, something changed. I woke up and couldn't remember what day it was. Had to count back through my log entries to figure it out. Day 100, 3.5 months. Over a quarter of a year alone in this concrete tube. I looked at my reflection in a piece of polished metal. Barely recognized myself. Beard grown long and matted. Hair wild. Eyes that looked through things instead of at them. I'd lost maybe 40 pounds. Cheekbones, sharp eyes, sunken. I looked like the walkers below, just better preserved. That thought wouldn't leave me. I was becoming like them, not infected, but hollow, going through the motions of survival without really living. Eat, drink, sleep, exist. No goals, no purpose, no future beyond the next day. The radio voices had mostly stopped. I'd scan the channels for hours and find nothing but static. The world wasn't rebuilding, it was just dying quieter. I spent that afternoon seriously considering climbing down. Not to find help, just to end it. Walk out into the walkers and let them finish me. It would be quick, probably less painful than slow starvation or freezing to death when winter came back around. I sat on the edge of the top platform, legs dangling over 180 feet of empty air, and wondered how long the fall would take. 2 seconds, 3. Then I heard something that stopped me cold. Voices, distant, but definitely human. Coming from the north, I grabbed my binoculars and scanned that direction. Saw them about 2 miles out. A group of people, maybe 20, moving across the fields on foot. They were pulling some kind of wagon loaded with supplies, and they were heading straight toward the facility. I watched them approach. They moved cautiously, but purposefully. They had weapons, looked organized. When they reached the facility perimeter, they stopped and studied the situation. The hundreds of walkers clustered around the silo base. One of them, a tall man with a rifle, shouted up toward the silo, "Anyone alive up there?" I didn't respond, watched silently. "We saw your rain collection set up," he called. "Somebody's alive. We're not here to hurt you, just looking for a safe place to rest for a night." Still, I said nothing. "Look," the man continued, "we have women and children with us. We've been walking for 5 days. We're exhausted. We just need a safe space. Please." "Children," he said. "Children." I looked through the binoculars. Saw them clearly now. About half the group was women and kids, ranging from teenagers down to what looked like a toddler in someone's arms. They all looked thin, tired, desperate, and I had food, water, safety, everything they needed to survive. "Please," the man shouted again. "We're not asking for much. Just let us sleep in the office building. We'll leave at dawn. You'll never know we were here." I could say yes, drop down a key to the office building, let them rest, share some grain, act human for once. Or I could stay silent, let them move on, protect my resources and my solitude. The old Nathan would have helped them without hesitation, but I wasn't that person anymore. 100 days had changed me. I stayed silent, watched as they waited for a response that never came. After 30 minutes, they moved on, walked west toward town. I watched them until they disappeared from sight. That night, I couldn't sleep, kept seeing the children's faces, imagined them dying of exposure or starvation, imagined that being my fault. Day 120, I heard them on the radio. The organized threat, they called themselves the Reclamation Front, professional, militaristic, and violent. They broadcast on multiple frequencies. A man with a gravelly voice, sounding educated, charismatic, survivors in the Iowa region. "This is Commander Wright of the Reclamation Front. We are establishing order in the chaos. We have food, weapons, shelter. If you wish to join us, respond on this frequency with your location. We will send a team to extract you." It sounded good, official, organized, but something in his tone raised my alarms. I listened to more broadcasts over the next few days. Double quotes, "All supplies are community property. Individual hoarding will not be tolerated. Assignments are mandatory. All able-bodied adults contribute to the group effort. Resistance to leadership will be dealt with severely." It wasn't rescue, it was conscription. They were building some kind of authoritarian settlement, forcing survivors into their structure. On day 123, I heard the darker truth. A woman came on the emergency channel, voice panicked. "Anyone listening, stay away from the Reclamation Front. They're not what they claim. They came to our farm, said they were here to help, took all our food, all our supplies, shot my husband when he protested, Please, if you hear this, don't trust them." Her transmission cut off mid. She never came back on the air. Day 125. They arrived at my facility. I'd been dreading it, but hoping my isolation would keep me off their radar. No such luck. 5 vehicles pulled up to the facility perimeter. 30 armed people deployed in tactical formation. Professional, dangerous, Commander Wright himself stepped forward. I could see him clearly through my binoculars. Mid-50s, military bearing, expensive outdoor gear. He looked up at the silo and spoke into a bullhorn. Survivor in the grain silo. My name is Commander Wright. I represent the Reclamation Front. We are here to integrate you into our community. Please climb down so we can talk. I stayed silent. I understand your hesitation, Wright continued. You've been isolated, probably traumatized, but solitary survival isn't sustainable. You need community. We can provide that. Come down and we'll discuss terms. Terms, not an offer. Terms. I can see your observation setup, Wright said. Professional rain collection, organized platforms. You're an engineer or technician of some kind. Those skills are valuable. We need people like you. You'll have a good position in our organization. Still, I said nothing. Wright's tone changed, hardened. I'm trying to be reasonable here, but understand that we have the numbers and firepower to take what we need, including this facility, and we can wait you out, or we can flush you out. Your choice. One of his people called out something I couldn't hear. Wright listened, then looked back up at the silo. My engineer says you probably have months of grain in there. That's community property now. We're confiscating it. You can join us willingly and benefit from that grain, or you can resist and lose everything. They started setting up camp at the facility perimeter, pitched tents, posted guards. They weren't leaving. They were settling in for a siege. That night I sat on my platform and faced reality. They had me. Sooner or later they'd either starve me out or find a way up. I could fight, but against 30 armed people, I'd lose. I could hold out, but they had time. Unless I did something drastic. The grain. They wanted the grain. Thousands of bushels of wheat still in the silo, worth its weight in gold in this new world. I'd already used grain as a weapon once, when those raiders attacked me. I'd opened the discharge and let it pour out. It had worked then. Would it work now? The difference was, I only had one silo worth of grain left. If I dumped it all, I'd have no food. But if I didn't dump it, they'd take it anyway. And me with it. Day 128. I made my choice. At dawn, while the Reclamation Front was still waking up, I climbed down to the bottom platform, found the discharge wheel, and opened it all the way. The grain roared out like a waterfall. Thousands of pounds pouring through the opening, piling up outside the silo base. The pile grew and spread, burying the walkers clustered there, flowing out across the ground like a wheat flood. The noise brought the Reclamation Front running. They watched in horror as I dumped their prize. Wright grabbed the bullhorn. What are you doing? That's food. Stop. I kept the valve open. The grain level inside the silo dropped steadily, 20 feet deep, 10 feet, 5 feet. The flow started to thin. You're insane, Wright screamed. You're throwing away your own survival. Maybe I was, but I wasn't giving them what they wanted. If I couldn't have the grain, nobody could. The last of the wheat poured out. The silo was empty. I closed the discharge and climbed back up. Wright and his people stood there looking at the massive pile of spilled grain, now mixed with dirt. Walker bot. Contamination. Ruined. Useless. Thousands of pounds of food turned into waste. Wright looked up at me with pure hatred. You've just killed yourself, he shouted. You have no food now. We'll wait. You'll starve in a month. And when you finally climb down begging for help, we won't give it. You'll die slow and alone up there. Think about that while you starve. They broke camp and left, drove west, probably going to hit other survivors who'd be easier to exploit. I sat down on the platform and looked at the empty silo below me. I'd just destroyed my own food supply to spite them. Stupid, absolutely, but it was my choice, my decision. Nobody was taking anything from me. I had maybe a week of emergency rations left. After that, nothing. But I was free, completely, absolutely free. Even if that freedom killed me. Day 140, I was dying. The rations were gone. I'd tried eating the few remaining wheat kernels caught in cracks and corners of the silo, but there wasn't enough. My body was consuming itself. I was weak, dizzy, barely able to climb between platforms. But I spent most of my time sleeping, conserving energy. Sometimes I'd wake up and forget where I was, think I was in my old apartment, or back on my father's farm, or somewhere else entirely. The radio voices were all gone now, just static. The world had gone quiet. Or maybe just my little corner of it. I thought about climbing down, ending it, but I was too weak to climb safely. I'd fall before I reached the bottom. That wasn't a choice anymore, so I waited to die in my concrete tower, surrounded by empty air and the moaning of the dead far below. Day 143, it rained. Heavy, soaking rain that lasted for hours. My collection tarp filled, then overflowed. I drank until my stomach hurt. Pure, clean water. I looked like the walkers below, just better preserved. That thought wouldn't leave me. I was becoming like them, not infected, but hollow, going through the motions of survival without really living. Eat, drink, sleep, exist. No goals, no purpose, no future beyond the next day. The radio voices had mostly stopped. I'd scan the channels for hours and find nothing but static. The world wasn't rebuilding, it was just dying quieter. I spent that afternoon seriously considering climbing down, not to find help, just to end it. Walk out into the walkers and let them finish me. It would be quick, probably less painful than slow starvation or freezing to death when winter came back around. I sat on the edge of the top platform, legs dangling over 180 feet of empty air, and wondered how long the fall would take. 2 seconds, 3. Then I heard something that stopped me cold. Voices, distant, but definitely human. Coming from the north, I grabbed my binoculars and scanned that direction. Saw them about 2 miles out. A group of people, maybe 20, moving across the fields on foot. They were pulling some kind of wagon loaded with supplies, and they were heading straight toward the facility. I watched them approach. They moved cautiously but purposefully. They had weapons, looked organized. When they reached the facility perimeter, they stopped and studied the situation. The hundreds of walkers clustered around the silo base. One of them, a tall man with a rifle, shouted up toward the silo, "Anyone alive up there?" I didn't respond, watched silently. "We saw your rain collection set up," he called. "Somebody's alive. We're not here to hurt you, just looking for a safe place to rest for a night." Still, I said nothing. "Look," the man continued, "we have women and children with us. We've been walking for 5 days. We're exhausted. We just need a safe space. Please." "Children," he said. "Children." I looked through the binoculars. Saw them clearly now. About half the group was women and kids, ranging from teenagers down to what looked like a toddler in someone's arms. They all looked thin, tired, desperate, and I had food, water, safety, everything they needed to survive. "Please," the man shouted again. "We're not asking for much. Just let us sleep in the office building. We'll leave at dawn. You'll never know we were here." I could say yes, drop down a key to the office building, let them rest, share some grain, act human for once. Or I could stay silent, let them move on, protect my resources and my solitude. The old Nathan would have helped them without hesitation, but I wasn't that person anymore. 100 days had changed me. I stayed silent, watched as they waited for a response that never came. After 30 minutes, they moved on, walked west toward town. I watched them until they disappeared from sight. That night, I couldn't sleep, kept seeing the children's faces, imagined them dying of exposure or starvation, imagined that being my fault. Day 120, I heard them on the radio. The organized threat, they called themselves the Reclamation Front, professional, militaristic, and violent. They broadcast on multiple frequencies. A man with a gravelly voice, sounding educated, charismatic. Survivors in the Iowa region. This is Commander Wright of the Reclamation Front. We are establishing order in the chaos. We have food, weapons, shelter. If you wish to join us, respond on this frequency with your location. We will send a team to extract you. It sounded good, official, organized, but something in his tone raised my alarms. I listened to more broadcasts over the next few days. Double quotes, all supplies are community property. Individual hoarding will not be tolerated. Assignments are mandatory. All able-bodied adults contribute to the group effort. Resistance to leadership will be dealt with severely. It wasn't rescue, it was conscription. They were building some kind of authoritarian settlement, forcing survivors into their structure. On day 123, I heard the darker truth. A woman came on the emergency channel, voice panicked. Anyone listening, stay away from the Reclamation Front. They're not what they claim. They came to our farm, said they were here to help, took all our food, all our supplies. Shot my husband when he protested. Please, if you hear this, don't trust them. Her transmission cut off mid. She never came back on the air. Day 125. They arrived at my facility. I'd been dreading it, but hoping my isolation would keep me off their radar. No such luck. 5 vehicles pulled up to the facility perimeter. 30 armed people deployed in tactical formation. Professional, dangerous, Commander Wright himself stepped forward. I could see him clearly through my binoculars. Mid-50s, military bearing, expensive outdoor gear. He looked up at the silo and spoke into a bullhorn. "Survivor in the grain silo. My name is Commander Wright. I represent the Reclamation Front. We are here to integrate you into our community. Please climb down so we can talk. I stayed silent. I understand your hesitation, Wright continued. You've been isolated, probably traumatized, but solitary survival isn't sustainable. You need community. We can provide that. Come down and we'll discuss terms. Terms, not an offer. Terms. I can see your observation set up, Wright said. Professional rain collection, organized platforms. You're an engineer or technician of some kind. Those skills are valuable. We need people like you. You'll have a good position in our organization. Still, I said nothing. Wright's tone changed, hardened. I'm trying to be reasonable here, but understand that we have the numbers and firepower to take what we need, including this facility, and we can wait you out, or we can flush you out. Your choice. One of his people called out something I couldn't hear. Wright listened, then looked back up at the silo. My engineer says you probably have months of grain in there. That's community property now. We're confiscating it. You can join us willingly and benefit from that grain, or you can resist and lose everything. They started setting up camp at the facility perimeter, pitched tents, posted guards. They weren't leaving. They were settling in for a siege. That night I sat on my platform and faced reality. They had me. Sooner or later they'd either starve me out or find a way up. I could fight, but against 30 armed people, I'd lose. I could hold out, but they had time. Unless I did something drastic. The grain. They wanted the grain. Thousands of bushels of wheat still in the silo, worth its weight in gold in this new world. I'd already used grain as a weapon once, when those raiders attacked me. I'd opened the discharge and let it pour out. It had worked then. Would it work now? The difference was, I only had one silo worth of grain left. If I dumped it all, I'd have no food. But if I didn't dump it, they'd take it anyway. And me with it. Day 128. I made my choice. At dawn, while the reclamation front was still waking up, I climbed down to the bottom platform, found the discharge wheel, and opened it all the way. The grain roared out like a waterfall, thousands of pounds pouring through the opening, piling up outside the silo base. The pile grew and spread, burying the walkers clustered there, flowing out across the ground like a wheat flood. The noise brought the reclamation front running. They watched in horror as I dumped their prize. Wright grabbed the bullhorn. What are you doing? That's food. Stop. I kept the valve open. The grain level inside the silo dropped steadily, 20 feet deep, 10 feet, 5 feet. The flow started to thin. You're insane, Wright screamed. You're throwing away your own survival. Maybe I was, but I wasn't giving them what they wanted. If I couldn't have the grain, nobody could. The last of the wheat poured out. The silo was empty. I closed the discharge and climbed back up. Wright and his people stood there looking at the massive pile of spilled grain, now mixed with dirt. Walker bot. Contamination, ruined, useless. Thousands of pounds of food turned into waste. Wright looked up at me with pure hatred. You've just killed yourself, he shouted. You have no food now. We'll wait. You'll starve in a month. And when you finally climb down begging for help, we won't give it. You'll die slow and alone up there. Think about that while you starve. They broke camp and left, drove west, probably going to hit other survivors who'd be easier to exploit. I sat down on the platform and looked at the empty silo below me. I'd just destroyed my own food supply to spite them. Stupid, absolutely, but it was my choice. My decision. Nobody was taking anything from me. I had maybe a week of emergency rations left. After that, nothing. But I was free. Completely, absolutely free. Even if that freedom killed me. Day 140, I was dying. The rations were gone. I'd tried eating the few remaining wheat kernels caught in cracks and corners of the silo, but there wasn't enough. My body was consuming itself. I was weak, dizzy, barely able to climb between platforms. That I spent most of my time sleeping, conserving energy. Sometimes I'd wake up and forget where I was, think I was in my old apartment, or back on my father's farm, or somewhere else entirely. The radio voices were all gone now, just static. The world had gone quiet, or maybe just my little corner of it. I thought about climbing down, ending it, but I was too weak to climb safely. I'd fall before I reached the bottom. That wasn't a choice anymore, so I waited to die in my concrete tower, surrounded by empty air and the moaning of the dead far below. Day 143, it rained. Heavy, soaking rain that lasted for hours. My collection tarp filled, then overflowed. I drank until my stomach hurt. Pure, clean water,